She was an adjunct professor of history at Goerge Mason University from 1999 to 2015, teaching classes about Middle East and the global women's rights. So please join me in giving her a hearty welcome.
First thing I want to talk a little bit about what my trip was. So I spent a week in Uganda visiting refugees, Eritrean, Rwandan, and Sudanese refugees with the Torture, Abolition, and Survivor Support Coalition. They all need to be anonymous. A lot of them are in danger, which I'll talk a little bit about. And then I spent 3 days in Rwanda. And I had a fabulous trip. I visited the Kant Museum, which was about German colonialism, the Kigali Genocide Memorial Museum, the Campaign Against Genocide Museum, and the Belgian Peacekeepers. So I learned a lot and had a really amazing time. Okay, so first I want to talk a little bit about the similarities that I have learned so far between the two genocides in Rwanda and the Holocaust. Most important definition, and as Walter said, progressive Jews like me and Walter, who have sympathy with the Palestinians, are struggling about what's happening in Gaza. And I'll explain my view on that also. That's something that we talk about all the time. But the key to understanding what is genocide is there has to be an intent. The intent is clearly stated about eliminating whole or part of a population, and they speak about it very loudly in propaganda, in media, in film. The intent has to be there. So, as strange as it seems, if there just so happened to be 800,000 people Tutsis killed, but nobody had an intent to eliminate them, that would not really be considered a genocide. But it's the intent. This is what we are going to do. It's kind of like premeditated murder. When someone plans they're going to kill someone, they plan it ahead of time. That's what they're going to do. It's not like manslaughter, the person's dead, but oh, by mistake I killed them. That is really what makes a genocide. So the two cases that are the most unambiguous cases of genocide are the Holocaust and Rwanda. Again, this is about the intent to exterminate a racial, ethnic, or religious group in whole or in part. And of course, the Nazis made it clear they wanted to annihilate every Jew in Europe. They ended up killing 2/3 of the Jews in Europe. So maybe they thought that was successful, quote unquote. And again, it's been very difficult to get the figures about Rwanda. I talked about it with Mary last night. It's not really clear, but most things I read said it's about 75% of the Tutsis were killed. Does that sound right to you, Emmanuel? Yeah? So it's a little bit harder to get the actual data, but that's a huge percent. So the numbers mean a lot, and so does the intent. Okay, so where does the word genocide come from? It means gens, people in Latin, and side, killing. So homicide is killing a person. Femicide, killing women because they're women. Genocide, killing a people because of who they are. And it comes from a Polish Jew named Raphael Lemkin, who first started thinking about genocide when he applied it to the Armenians. And the Armenian genocide was in April 1915. That's when it started. That's why we call this Genocide Awareness Month, because it's when the Armenian genocide started, the Rwandan genocide, and Holocaust Remembrance Day is on April 23rd of this month. So what he did is then he has ended up escaping the Holocaust, but his parents ended up getting killed. And after that, he decided that he wanted to get a law passed against genocide, and it was because of him that we ended up getting the International Convention Against Genocide, which of course has not been effective, as we all know. But he was the person behind that. Okay, crimes against humanity is very, very different. Crimes against humanity are also horrendous crimes. It's systematic attacks against civilians, but not necessarily committed against a targeted ethnic or racial or religious group. So it's not for example, a war crime committed during war. If one person is killed who is a prisoner of war, that's a war crime, because you're not supposed to kill prisoners of war if it's one person. But when we talk about systematic crimes against humanity, could be torture, could be sexual violence, could be murder, But that's the big difference. Systematic for crimes against humanity doesn't have to be about a particular group targeted for the race, religion, and nationality. That's a big difference. Also horrible, right? And of course, war crimes have to be committed during war. But crimes against humanity could happen when there isn't a war. It could be in an internal situation inside a country when you don't have a civil war, but the government is still committing these systematic murders and massacres of people. That's probably what you have in Sudan now, I would say, is crimes against humanity now. It could evolve into a genocide, but I say that's kind of the way I would characterize it. Definitely by the Rapid Support Forces. I'm not sure about the Army, but okay. So what are some of the similarities between what happened that led up to the genocide in Rwanda and the Holocaust? Both of them passed laws, racial laws. Laws matter. Laws are important. So in Germany, you had the Nuremberg laws of 1935, and this is the preface. This is quote from the German government. Moved by the understanding of the purity of German blood, we're talking about blood, the essential condition for the continued existence of the German people, and inspired by the inflexible determination to ensure the existence of the German nation, the German government unanimously adopted a law outlawing marriages between Jews and non-Jews in Germany and eliminating citizenship for Jews. So when you look at that and you listen to it, the Nazis are saying the continued existence of the German people depends on disenfranchising the Jews and stopping marriages between Jews and non-Jews. Our existence, we Germans, if we don't do that, we will be destroyed as the German people. It's seen as defensive. So, and they're also talking about the purity of German blood. So think about that word, blood. Okay, then we're talking about, let me see where I have it. I had the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments, the Hutu Ten Commandments, which also talked about Hutu power in 1990, and this idea of preventing marriages or relationships between Tutsis and Hutus, mixed blood. Again, we come to blood, just like all the laws that outlawed marriages in the South between African Americans and whites. They call it miscegenation. That was the word they used. That mixing of blood seems to be a big theme here. Then we have another similarity is also propaganda. This is not my quote. I took this from somewhere else. I thought it was great. Quote, genocide does not start with the murder of masses of people. It starts in people's minds. What is in the minds of people? Laws are not sufficient to incite hatred and turn a society into being genocidal. There needs to be a long-term propaganda campaign that dehumanizes the target group and advocates for their annihilation. So, centuries of European anti-Semitism, hatred of Jews based on this accusation that today's Jews, like Walter said, are responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. That's the origin of anti-Semitism. It's in the Christian world because of this accusation that not only the Jews from 2,000 years ago, but the Jews of today are responsible for the death of Jesus Christ. That's the origin. And that they seek world domination. This is why so many Jews are nervous when people say George Soros, you know, there's George Soros with a big dollar sign. George Soros is trying to control the world. He's representative of the Jews that control the world. And I'm just going to bring one example here. I'm going to forget what year it was. Was it 2018? I thought when it was, there was a guy named Robert Bowers. And was it 2018, Walter?
Tree of Life, yeah.
Yeah, Tree of Life. So Robert Bowers, there's a group that Hias, Walter mentioned Hias. Hias brought in Jewish refugees during World War II. But now it doesn't need to bring in Jewish refugees from all over the world, so it's bringing in non-Jewish refugees from Africa, from Asia, up until Trump cut its services. That's what Hias was doing. Non-Jewish refugees who were in need all over the world. So there was a synagogue called the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which happens to be where I was born, and they were having what's called a refugee Shabbat. Shabbat is a Friday celebration for Jews. So they advertised, we're having the refugee Sabbat in this synagogue. We want to invite everyone to support refugees and immigrants. So this guy, Robert Bowers, who is a white supremacist ultranationalist, decides, oh, they're the ones, those Jews are the ones bringing in all the immigrants into America. They're the ones who are responsible, because those immigrants crossing the border, they're not smart enough to be able to come themselves. There must be someone up there bringing them in. It must be the Jews. So he went and he carried out this massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, killing 11 elderly Jews, the worst massacre of Jews in US history, ever. Done by this white supremacist nationalist who doesn't think the Jews are white. Just like you said, you know, look at Walter, he's a white guy. Well, some of these ultra-nationalist supremacists, some of them don't think he's white. I mean, I look a little more white because I have blonde hair. No, but this is true. In all seriousness, it really is true. So that they were killed. That's another example of sort of modern anti-Semitism. Okay, so then when we're talking about the Rwandans, this myth propagated by a European whose name was, I think it was, he was British, not Belgian. This idea that the Tutsis originated in Ethiopia, and they all came down from Ethiopia to take over Rwanda and drive all the Hutu farmers off their farms. That was a British, I used to think the Belgians started it, but he was the one that started it. The Belgians adopted this idea, and the Hutus got it from him, got it from the Belgians. They're foreign invaders, they want to take over our country, and you propagate this myth, and you keep saying it again and again. We've seen that in our country when certain people, not to be named, tell lies, and they repeat the lie over and over, and a lot of people believe them, right? They keep saying it, they say it with a lot of strength, a lot of charisma, they look you straight in the eye and tell you a lie, and you believe them. Right? We see it right here going on. We will not say who's telling lies. Okay. So then you also have the propaganda in Germany. It was through film and the press and Rwanda magazine and the radio. And then you have a final solution. I want to go with the manual. Before I started studying it, I used to think those Hutus went out with a bunch of machetes spontaneously and just started killing people. Absolutely not. And they planned their genocide just as carefully as the Nazis planned theirs. And when we think about 6 million Jews killed over 4 years, there were 800,000 to 1 million Tutsis killed in 3 months. That was quote unquote efficient. You kill a lot of people in a short period of time. That's efficiency, right? And it was absolutely no question that it was planned way ahead. So in Germany, it was in 1942-41, the Nazis came up with what they called the final solution, which means eliminate the Jewish people. That's different from ethnic cleansing, where you put people, you take them, you kick them out of one place and send them somewhere else. That's ethnic cleansing, right? Crimes against humanity, starvation. People could die, but the purpose of starvation is not to, Israel is using starvation as a weapon of war right now in Gaza. But they don't have a goal of killing every single of the 2 million Gazans. That is not their goal. So that is the final solution, means that'll be the end, kill all the Jewish people. Okay, so then, and how to do it efficiently, do it with Zyklon B. The gas, Zyklon B, do it efficiently, do it quickly, put the people in gas chambers. Then they also had these people called Einsatzgruppen who carried out shooting massacres of people. Okay, and then, let me just say, it was not only Jews that were killed by the Nazis. You also had the Roma and the Sinti, sometimes known as gypsies, homosexuals, communists, dissidents. Not only Jews, and that's really important, particularly for people like me and Walter who call ourselves progressive Jews. We focus on the Holocaust because the goal was not to eliminate every single homosexual. It was not, they didn't feel strongly about eliminating them because they were not threatening the blood of the German people like the Jews were. But they were also targeted. And you go in to visit the concentration camps and you'll see dissidents, communists, homosexuals, the gypsies, the Roma, and the Sinti who are also targeted. And there's also a monument in Berlin just to the Roma and the Sinti, to the gypsy people, a whole entire monument to them. And a very, very small one for homosexuals, very small. Okay, so then a big, huge difference that I saw is that in the case of Rwanda, besides having these militias, like the Interahamwe, they encourage people, neighbors, to kill their friends and relatives. You didn't have that in Germany, because in Germany, it was the military that did it, the paramilitary. They put people on trains, they sent the trains out of Germany and other parts of Europe, sent them to Poland. That's where they set up extermination camps. So when we talk about concentration camps, there were labor camps where people are forced to work, and there are extermination camps where the purpose is to kill people as quickly as possible. So those were called extermination camps. And of course, in Rwanda, you had neighbors that did it. You heard about husbands killing their Tutsi wives. That was just, I talked about this so many times with Mary, trying to understand how this could happen. And again, the propaganda, Hutus have said, like the Hutu 10 Commandments, if you are, it's either us or them. If you're with us, we're the Hutus, they are your enemy, including your own wives. You have to choose, us or them. But it's still, even now, we've had, Mary and I, so many discussions, it's still difficult to understand that how neighbors are going to so easily do that. That's what happened again and again and again. Okay, I want to talk a little bit now about post-genocide. First is a culture of memory. So in Germany, there now are only 118,000 Jews, because all the German Jews either were killed or they escaped. And like Walter's mother, she never wanted to go to Germany or speak German a day of her life again. So there is a Jewish community, but they're not the German Jews. So you are not an elderly German Jew and walking down the street and looking at some elderly guy, that guy could have killed my family, because you're dead. They're not there. And it's so completely different in Rwanda that I kept hearing again and again, and it's still difficult. And I told Mary that in the Kigali Museum, there was a photo on the wall of this woman that said, I spoke to the man who told me that he killed my parent, or my kid, 2 of my children, and he told me where they're buried. So I went and I found them, and I was able to bury them, and that gave me a lot of relief, and I thanked him. I mean, it's just incomprehensible. She forgave him and she thanked him because now she can bury her children, and that meant so much to her, to be able to bury her children. And we hear so many stories like that. It's still difficult to understand, how people can do that. And again, I'm quoting Mary because she and I talk about this a lot. And I said, how are these Tutsis continuing to live there? And I was in Rwanda. Everybody gets along fine, at least on the outside, from what I could see. She says, well, they want to live in their country. And if they're going to live in their country, and 85% of the people are Hutus, then they have to live with Hutus. Otherwise, they're not going to live in their country. So you're nodding, but it's so hard to understand how people are able to do that. But, like I just talked to Emmanuel, we talked about inner resilience. Like the resilience of one person, the resilience of a whole country. It's just amazing to me. Okay, again, the culture of memory. So in Germany, you see monuments to the 6 million Jews. And again, I told you there's one for the Roma, small one for the homosexuals, all over the country. All over Germany are monuments. And you feel, I did, a genuine feeling of remorse from the German people. So when Angela Merkel, the former chancellor, she took in 1 million Syrian refugees. She did that. It's still, we are sorry. Look what we did. We have to make it up. And she took 1 million Syrian refugees, mostly Syrian refugees, into the country. Unfortunately, now comes the challenge. The challenge is you now have this extremist party called the AfD, Alternative for Germany, in Germany, and some of it is in reaction to bringing in those 1 million Syrian refugees. They are the second largest party. They have 20% support, and they have a big supporter. Does anyone know who their big supporter is in the United States?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, right. And Elon Musk said, the Germans should stop feeling so sorry for them, they should stop talking about the Holocaust all the time. And then, of course, he put out his arm in a salute that's either a Nazi salute or a Roman salute. We don't know actually what it is. Do you have an opinion, Walter?
Was that,
He went like that, that's
Was it
it.
the fist or was it the hand?
I don't know, no, it was a hand.
I think it was like the hand, except a little bit more, like the Nazis were like this and his was over here, but otherwise it looked like the same.
It looked like the same thing.
That's what you wanted to do. You remember it came from Sparta.
But the thing is he also said, if he had only done that, he also said he went into a rally of this party in Germany to support them, and he also said they should stop being so remorseful. He said all those things.
Oh, Jesus.
You know, and that party, so that's the challenge there.
2
So
minutes.
now I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Where is my friend from the embassy? There he is.
2 minutes.
Comes the controversial part, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. Okay, so Rwanda made great strides economically, exports tea and coffee, has a wonderful tourist industry, and I'm going to tell you, not to offend my friend here from Kampala, but they have these boda-bodas, which are these motorcycles. Boda-boda. So when you're in Kampala, I would not take a boda-boda, because the boda-bodas just go like this. And they don't stop at lights. They just keep going, and they don't wear helmets, and if you're a passenger, they don't give you a helmet. In Rwanda, you have to wear a helmet, the passenger wears a helmet, they stop right in front of every light, they obey all the laws, it's very safe. I walked around 9 o'clock at night myself in Kigali, by myself, a Western woman just walking around feeling very safe.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm saying the nice things first.
Okay.
Okay, so, and the people are very friendly, very wonderful people,
So the
beautiful.
is probably in Uganda, not in Uganda.
Right. Kampala, it's very dangerous. Rwanda, it's very orderly, everybody follows the laws, you feel very safe, the streets are all clean, you can go pay $500 for an hour to see a gorilla, you know. You can go pay all this money to see a gorilla, watch the gorilla, cost I did not do that. I went to see the lion, it only cost $100.
Time.
Okay, one more minute, here we go. Now the controversial part. I spent time, as I said, in Uganda visiting Rwandan refugees. The lack of political freedom, this is the controversial part. I said to Mary, I'm going to say this, Mary. The lack of political freedom and attacks on refugees abroad is a big stain on Rwanda. So I met these refugees whose relatives were not members of any armed group. Their relatives just criticized the Rwandan government. Peacefully, they opened their mouth, they criticized the government, they wanted more political freedom, and as a result, they were killed, they were forcibly disappeared, and their relatives fled to Uganda. But they're not safe in Uganda. Why not? Because there are Rwandan spies lurking around, watching them. And so every time someone sees a Rwandan spy from the government, they have to take off and move somewhere else. And I met people who moved 8 times, just because they're terrified. So the whole thing is, stop it. Could you give that message to the embassy? They should just stop targeting the refugees in Uganda. I'm not going to talk about any other kinds of refugees, because that's my own personal experience. That's the time I spent talking to these people who were terrified. They were afraid to even register as refugees in Uganda, where they could get a lot of benefits, because people are watching them all the time. And it's ridiculous. Because, okay, so that's the last thing that I wanted to say with my controversial message. Thank you.